Okay, now we will come to the threshold limit. Okay, so basically what is a threshold limit? A threshold limit is something where basically if a dealer's total turnover exceeds the specified amount by each of the statute, then that person needs to register under the statute and comply to the statute's law requirement and the compliance requirement. Okay, so under GST, what are the thresholds? Okay, if you see, we will first take the regular dealer. So if you take the northeastern state, two different categories of states have been broadly categorized into two different categories. So one, basically the northeastern state including Assam, where the GST specifies, the rule specifies that if a dealer whose aggregate turnover exceeds 4 lakh rupees in the year, then that particular dealer needs to register for GST. He has to register. Now if his aggregate turnover exceeds 5 lakh rupees, then now he has to pay tax on the sale, which means basically the taxability is effected from 5 lakh rupees of aggregate turnover. Rest of India, the aggregate turnover, if a business aggregate turnover exceeds 9 lakh rupees, then the business needs to register, and if it exceeds 10 lakh rupees, then the payment of tax incidence starts. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the first GST Council met on 22nd and 23rd, and one of the major decisions that was taken was a lot of recommendation from various industries and various bodies that the threshold limit of 5 lakhs for northeastern state and threshold limit of 10 lakhs for the other rest of India seems to be a very low thing, and then small businesses are going to be impacted. So the recommendation was that the threshold limit needs to be enhanced. Okay, so the decision taken by the GST Council is that yes, now, so this is not again come into the draft law, because this draft law that we are now discussing about has been already published in June, right? So there will be another draft law, or there will be another or final draft law which will now incorporate these changes and these decisions, and we will get another maybe draft laws 2 or the final law which will be implemented. So what is the change that has happened? So now the government, the council has decided that for northeastern state, if the aggregate turnover exceeds 10 lakh rupees, right, then they are covered, they have to register under GST. For rest of India, if it exceeds 20 lakhs, then they have to register under GST. Composition scheme, right? So again, to protect the interest of small dealers or the dealers who directly deal with consumers. See, there is one, we know there are two kinds of businesses, right? One is B2B, which is business to business, and the other one is business to consumer, right? So the composition levy is been there in the current taxation regime, and the same thing, the same facility or benefit is made available under GST also, that the small dealers can opt for a composition levy, or they can opt to be registered under composition scheme. So what is the criteria? The aggregate turnover should not exceed 10 lakh rupees. Now let's take, so one, we have now said that the change is going to be, instead of 5 lakh, it is going to be 10 lakh, instead of 10 lakh, it is going to be 20 lakhs. Let's take a dealer who is in rest of India, and that particular dealer's aggregate turnover is exceeding 20 lakhs. So now he has to now register. Now he's got an option, right? So the option is, if his total turnover, the aggregate turnover is definitely exceeding 20 lakhs, he has to register. But if it is not exceeding 50 lakhs, right, then the dealer has the option to register himself under composition scheme. Composition scheme is going to be a lighter compliance, where you don't have to get into too much of detailed submission of information. There will be some, you will definitely have a form. Even those forms, let's say under GST, if you see, it's going to be a monthly return filing for the regular dealer. But for the composition dealer, it will be a quarterly basis, and the kind of information that a regular dealer needs to provide is not required by the composition dealers under the scheme, and that is what is currently also available under the VAT and service tax. Transitioning of registration, all the existing dealers, right, will automatically migrated and they will get automatic registration. It's just going to be one registration. So the law specifies that they'll give about 6 months time where the department is going to ask. So now yesterday the rule and the format for registration is already published. So the rule is now going to tell you what are all the steps you need to take. There is this format of registration form is made available. So the dealer needs to fill up and the additional details will be required. For example, since now VAT is going to be part of GST and the registration is going to be PAN based. Currently, the VAT department doesn't have the PAN as the part of the till, right? So these are some of the information that is required such that the central and the state government can now get the complete information of the dealer. So within 6 months, once this information is provided, then you will get a regular registration. So currently, the existing businesses need not have to worry. On April 1st, if GST is implemented, they can just move into the GST regime and then as per the law, they can start doing their business. So which is the first and the provisional, then the dealers will get the final registration. So now we were talking about the existing taxes which the central government is levying, the taxes that the state government is levying. So we need to now understand, so how are these taxes are going to get subsumed under GST? Like we said, under GST, I had also mentioned that the center is also going to levy and state is also going to levy. So what are the taxes? How the existing taxes are going to get subsumed under each of this, and what is the component of this GST? I'm sure you must have heard this terminology is called CGST, SGST, IGST, right? So we will try and understand what is this and how the current existing taxations are going to get subsumed under GST. So first let us take all this central taxation. So excise duty is central tax, additional duty of excise is central, service tax is central, then we have various surcharges and cesses. So these are central levied taxes, and now these taxes are going to now get subsumed under Central Goods and Services Tax, which is CGST. Okay. Now let's come back to the state levies that has been levied under the current regime. One is the major taxation one is the VAT, then we have this purchase tax, then we have entry tax, not for all the goods, some of the goods. Then we have this luxury tax. Then we have octroi, surcharge, cess. These state taxes will now get subsumed under SGST, which stands for State Goods and Services Tax. So what is left now? The CST part, right? So that is not covered. So where is that now going to get subsumed, and what is going to happen to the CST and the other taxes? So first is you have the CST, then you have this CVD, countervailing duty, and SAD is secondary additional duty or something. I'm not sure about the SAD, the full thing. So the CVD and the SAD part will now get subsumed under IGST. So what is IGST? I stands for integrated. It is not interstate. Integrated Goods and Services Tax, right? So now we have seen these three components, right? So one is that we have seen this CGST, which is central GST. Then we have seen this SGST, which is state GST. And we have this IGST. All these three components is what is going to form GST. So when CGST or when SGST is going to be applicable and when IGST is going to be applicable, whenever there is going to be a transaction of supply of goods or services, then within the state, okay, then CGST and SGST is going to be applicable, which is your GST rate. Whenever there is a supply of goods or services that is being effected outside the state, which is basically the interstate, then the IGST is going to be applicable. Okay, again, if you see, IGST is also going to form literally it is going to be CGST plus SGST. Okay, so that's your IGST. So let's take this one tax scenario under GST, which is now going to, we had this one diagram that we had which talked about simplification of tax, elimination of cascading effect. Okay, so those two things that with this example we will cover it and then see how the taxation scenario is going to look under GST. Okay. Let's take the example of a car. Now this example that we have taken is under the existing, as of today, under the existing tax regime. So the example that we have taken is, let's say the cost of manufacturing a car is 4 lakh rupees for the manufacturer, right? So now he is going to invoice this to the car dealer. So the excise is at 12% and then there is infrastructure cess of 1% that is going to be applicable, right? So if you add this, then the excise duty is going to be 52,000. Okay. Now VAT is computed on what? VAT is going to be computed on 4 lakh plus 52,000. On 4 lakh 52,000, VAT is charged at 12.5%. So which is 56,500. So what is going to be the total dealer invoice value or the amount that is going to pay the manufacturer? It is going to be 5,08,500. Right. Now dealer has to add some margin to that, and now he has to finally sell it to the customer or the final consumer. Right. Now under this current scenario, if you see what is going to be the dealer cost, the dealer cost is going to be the base cost, which is 4 lakh rupees plus 52,000 rupees of this excise duty and infrastructure cess that is paid, since now he cannot claim input tax credit, so it gets added to the cost. So now the cost of the car to the dealer is going to be 4,52,000. Let's say that he takes a 10% margin, so which is 45,200, and now the sale price for the dealer is going to be 4,97,200. On that he is going to charge VAT. Now in the case where he purchased, he paid 56,500 rupees as VAT. Okay, so he is not adding that to the cost because he is eligible to claim as input tax credit, right? So now he is going to charge 62,500 as VAT. So which means if he has to now discharge his VAT liability, 62,150 minus 56,500 is going to be his VAT liability, right? So now the price to the consumer is going to be 5,59,350, right? Now taking the same example, taking the same values, we will see how can we envisage. Now this is just, we are giving you an indication, because since the rates have not been finalized, okay, and the rules also, more or less we need to get more clarity on these things, but then maybe slight changes could be there because of the change in the rate, but there's just an indicative scenario that we have built up under the GST. Taking the same thing, the cost of the car is going to be 4 lakh rupees, and now under GST the manufacturer is going to charge. So here the standard rate that we have taken here as an example is 11 plus 11 is 22%. So whenever we say GST is 18% or 20% or 22%, it is going to have, currently it is going to be equal. The CGST and SGST part, I mean, like, we need to get more clarity on that in case if there is any changes. We don't see any major change in the component of the GST and SGST, right? So for us, just for simple understanding, if the CGST, if the GST rate is 22%, then CGST will be 11%, SGST will be 11%. So on 4 lakh rupees, CGST at 11%, 44,000 is charged, and we will now notice here SGST is charged on the base price. It is not base price plus CGST. It is not SGST 11%. So both CGST and SGST is 44. Now tax on tax is eliminated. Now let's come back to the dealer invoice value. The dealer invoice value under GST is going to be 4,88,000 rupees. So what is going to be the cost to the dealer? It is going to be 4 lakhs. Right? In the earlier case, it was 4 lakh plus the excise duty of 52,000. But under GST, the car dealer now, he is now eligible to claim input tax credit on GST, which has got the CGST of 11% component, SGST of 11% component. He can claim that as ITC. So that is the reason why this 44,000 is not getting added as cost. So now the cost to the dealer still remains the base cost of 4 lakh rupees. Now he had some margin of 10%, which is 40,000 rupees. Now the sale price to the dealer becomes 4,40,000, and he is going to charge 22% GST, which comprises of 11% CGST and 11% SGST. So which is 48,400, 48,400. So finally the price to the customer, you will see it is 5,36,800. So if you just take just this saving to the customer, again I'm saying indicative. So if you people are planning to buy the car, really, you can definitely wait till GST comes. It's going to be beneficial. But then this is just an indicative example or illustration that you have given. If you see the difference here is almost 4% is what the final consumer is going to save because of the elimination of cascading effect of the excise duty and also tax on tax, which is the VAT which is charged on the excise duty and the assessable value of the cost. Okay, so this explains the elimination of cascading and tax on tax. Okay, now the input credit mechanism. So let me just give an anecdote, okay, for us to understand this better. So input credit mechanism. Now, if I ask all of you, do you want to be a hunter or a fisher? I'm sure most of you will say that, you want to be a hunter. Why? Because that's where the thrill is, right? Right? You chase the target and then, you feel great about it, right? This is exactly what the government was doing for the last 70 years, right? So they were chasing the businesses to be properly compliant, to pay proper taxes on time, to claim proper input tax credit, eligible input tax credit on time, to file the return on time, all those things. I mean, this was not working, right? So now, what does a fisher do? Right? So now fisher, he relaxes in the chair, takes the fishing pole, right, puts the bait, the hook, and throws it into the water. Now what happens? The target now moves towards the fisher, right? So this is exactly what GST is, if you understand from a government's perspective, right? How can I relate this anecdote to the input credit mechanism? If you see, under input credit mechanism, under GST, it says very clearly that until and unless your seller, okay, who is the supplier of outward supply. No, so again, we should not be using this word called sale and purchase. It will be outward supply or inward supply. Just for us to understand better, I'll still use the existing word, right? So the outward supply is basically sale. Until and unless you are out, the dealer who is making an outward supply or sales, if he is not declaring that in his return as a sale, right? And you are not eligible to claim input tax credit because he is not declaring that as sale, number one. Number two, if this dealer, though he is declared it his sale and you are also declaring it as purchase, so now the sale and purchase is matched, no problem. But still you can okay, since both of them have furnished the purchase and sale detail which is matching, the buying dealer, okay, so the inward supply dealer is now eligible for input tax credit. So under VAT or SENVAT, the same, this is what happens, right? So now what GST says is, yes, you are eligible for input tax credit, but then this is only a provisional basis. So when will you get the proper credit of input tax credit? The government specifies that the selling dealer needs to now furnish the sale information, which you will now reconcile, and then your record also will show the same purchase detail. The other criteria is, this is the current law that says, and this is where a lot of people have given very strong feedback to the government, saying that this is going to be really difficult to manage and administer, especially for small businesses. And this is one of the area where technology is going to be a major key player to make GST implementation successful. So what the department says now, that the selling dealer has to now file the return on time and he should now clear his liability. Once he files the return on time and clears the liability, then you are eligible for proper input tax credit on the purchase that you have made, right? This is exactly what I was talking about, the fishing. Now the whole buying dealer, selling dealer, agent dealer, every dealer has to have a proper understanding, and then they have to come here. If they are not aligned, if you don't get this visibility, if you don't get this clarity, if you are not reconciling, if you are not prepared to get this information and then reconcile, okay, then it is going to be very difficult. So this is what happens is, the government says, you people now decide and then give me all the information. Only when all this, whatever criteria I have mentioned, if this is matching, then you take input tax credit. That's exactly what fishing is, right? So let's just see how this input credit mechanism works. Probably there could be some relaxation to this in the upcoming model law, in the changes, we don't know. But then yes, there are serious recommendations on this front from various quarters to the government. So how does it work? As per the current draft law, let's just have a look at it. So there is a buyer, then there is a supplier, right? So buyer is nothing but the inward supply, a dealer who's got an inward supply, and this is a seller who's doing an outward supply. Right? So one is that yes, I need to have a tax invoice to claim input tax credit, and then I have to receive the goods, right? So these are the two major conditions. If these two things are there, then I can now claim provisional ITC on that particular tax in the invoice. This is the provisional, which now goes to the electronic credit ledger. Now, again, coming back to the technology driven, one more component that we were talking about, the technology driven, right? So here what is, like I had mentioned earlier, that every invoice is uploaded, matched, cross-verified, reconciled, okay? Only then this eligibility of input tax credit is going to happen. So now for this, the government, the GSTN, right? So the GST network is going to hold the backbone, which is the technology backbone, the servers and all those things. Now each one of us, like how we have our own portal under excise, service tax and VAT, under GST we will have a portal. Now there the government is going to have two ledger. One is called as electronic credit ledger, which is going to now tell you that what is your actual eligible input tax credit based on the criteria of the being met by the supplier. Number one. Number two is they are going to have another register called electronic cash register. So that is basically all the payments that you are making or all the refunds that you are going to get will go into electronic cash register. So now you have one return, then you have this two ledger that the portal is going to have. It is, if we can just relate this one under people who are covered under excise, you will know that we used to under excise we used to have this PLA register, right? So where you can make the payment and then once the duty is discharged, if the balance is available, it acts like your passbook, right? So similarly, now under GST you will have this electronic credit ledger and you will have this electronic cash ledger, which is maintained by the department based on the return information that you have furnished. At the same time, now you should also make sure that your books of account or your records is now going to match such that you are able to always reconcile and have the right information available with you. That way like both the information in your books of account, whether it is manual or whether you are using a software, and the value that has been reflecting under the thing. So this is one aspect. The second aspect of it, the provisional ITC and the actual ITC is basically like your TDS deduction, right? The AS 26, right? So where basically if you see a person who's deducted TDS, now if that person is not remitted the TDS, he will have the consequences of non-compliance. But unfortunately, since that and once he remits the TDS, that gets credited in your ledger, your TDS ledger. So when you are now filing your return, basically what happens is whatever is the TDS credit that you are having, only to that extent you can claim and reduce from your tax liability. The similar kind of thing is what this, you will have this, we can just relate it to just get a visualization of what is this electronic credit ledger or the cash ledger, right? So now you get this provisional ITC on this particular invoice, and now the outward supplier, right, needs to file the return on time, okay? And he has to pay the tax liability. We will see what are the timeline and what are the different returns that are made available under the GST. So if these two things have been met, then you will get, in the sense the buyer will get the ITC credit. So in this case, let us take a use case. Now there is one invoice, he is uploaded and you have only one purchase invoice. You have received the tax invoice, you have received the goods, he is uploaded the purchase sales invoice. You are also uploading your purchase invoice, both have been reconciled. So you are eligible for input tax credit. On the specified date, 20th is the last date for your monthly return. On the specified day, let us say that he files the return and he pays the tax liability. When I say pays the tax liability, his input minus output, whatever is the net of the tax liability, he pays within the prescribed time. Then you are now completely eligible for this input tax credit. This is how the input tax credit mechanism works under GST. Then your eligibility of ITC is done. What are the types of return? If you take the regular dealer, there are broadly 4 returns. There are a couple of more returns could come, like there is discussion about GSTR1, which is basically for the resolution of the discrepancies or disputes. Okay, so those are some of the returns. We will cover that once we get more clarity on that. So currently, if you see broadly, for us to understand, the GSTR1 is basically a monthly return, which is the you can call this as annexure, right? So which is basically the return will have the dealer needs to capture all the outward supply of goods and services that has been made during the previous year, and he has to now upload this to GSTN by the 10th of succeeding month. All right. So now GSTR2 is once the selling dealer, let us just visualize a scenario. The selling dealer is going to upload by 10th the all his sales detail. Now let's say I have made 4 purchases from this particular person. Now from 11th, right? From 11th, the moment I go to my portal, in my GSTR2 return, the sales related to my purchases by that dealer who's filed GSTR1 will now automatically reflect in my GSTR2, which is auto-populated, right? So I have made 4 purchases. He's uploaded 10 sales, but then 4 belongs to me. Now when I go to the portal on 11th, the 4 his sale invoice will reflect in my GSTR2. What is GSTR2? That is the detail of all my inward supply, which is nothing but the purchases, which I need to now accept it. If there is any discrepancy or for whatever reason that you have 5th invoice, which that particular dealer is not uploaded as sale, but you have this as purchase, you have a tax invoice, you have received goods, you can now update that information, and by 15th, you will have to now submit your GSTR2, right? So now from 16th to 20th, if there is any discrepancy between the buying dealer and the selling dealer, the GSTN will now basically quickly, the moment this information is populated to the GSTN, the notification will go to the outward supply and the inward supply saying that, okay, there is a mismatch. This person is showing it as purchase, but you are not shown it as sale. So these are the reconciliation that needs to be done. The dispute needs to be resolved and all those things. There are timeline also. If it cannot be done in the current period, you can resolve it by the next period. Okay, so these provisions are there. The details we will discuss in another separate session when we cover the return part as a main topic that we are going to discuss. Then, so now what happens is GSTR1 is related to my sale, GSTR2 is related to my purchase. Now GSTR3 on 20th it is going to be ready. It has my purchase and sale. It shows what is my outward liability. It shows what is my input tax credit liability. It will net it out, and then the GSTR3 is auto-populated or auto-prepared by the GSTN, which is by the government, right? So by 20th, based on the return, we have to now accept it, and then whatever is the tax liability, now the dealer needs to pay. So this is how the returns and the process of filing return is specified under the GST law. GSTR8 is basically the annual return, where the time is that by 31st of the next financial year, the regular dealer needs to file the GSTR8. Now coming to the compounding dealer, we discussed about the composition levy or the compounding dealer. The dealer has to, he did not have to file the return on a monthly basis. There is a form called GSTR4, which is basically the quarterly return, which he has to submit by 18th of the succeeding month. Then he also has the GSTR8, which is the annual return, which is as specified for the regular dealer. The rest, foreign, non-resident and all, we will cover later. So just for us to understand, okay, fun. So there are broadly, if you see, there are 8 broad return. So now I have not gone through the return rule and the return format that is just made available. I have to go through. Probably there could be 1 or 2 more returns which is there, and we will definitely update you on any changes that is going to happen. We will keep you posted on that.